Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze how Ancelotti won the tactical battle over Arteta through midfield overloads and targeting Xhaka. So when we break down the game and we do look at the board, both sides are starting the game in a 4-2-3-1. So the main focus here was how Everton caused Arsenal problems. So first we're going to look at how Arsenal looked to approach the game with the ball, and then focus how they did without the ball and see where Everton were able to exploit some weaknesses. So when we focus on Arsenal's shape and possession, you witness that they do shift into more of a three-man backline, with Xhaka holding his position in an inside left position and Chambers slightly advanced on the right. Up front, what you end up seeing is that Ceballos was in that gap between Richarlison and Alan, and at times he was looking to shift to get the ball on the outside of Richarlison so that he could progress play, or he was looking to make vertical runs in between that gap into the Coleman-Godfrey gap. What you saw from Thomas Partey was that he was often in between James and Calvert-Lewin, and he was looking to receive the ball in a deeper position, but because those two were sitting in between him, it was James' role to ensure that Thomas Partey didn't get on the ball. Then when we shift to the front four, Xhaka was often drifting laterally into narrow positions to pull away Dean so that Chambers could push forward, and what you ended up seeing on the left-hand side was because of Xhaka's narrow positioning, Arsenal were able to switch balls out to Pepe, as it looked like Arteta wanted to have Pepe in 1v1 duels with Coleman. That ultimately leaves you with Nketiah and Smith Rowe up front, and their roles were as expected. Smith Rowe was supposed to find space in between the lines to receive the ball and link play and shift laterally to create combination plays, and then Nketiah, similar to Lacazette, was expected to drop deeper to link play as well to allow runners in behind. However, what we often saw from Nketiah was that he was shifting into the channels to receive the ball, and for Smith Rowe, he was entangled in that midfield battle. He was struggling to receive the ball between the lines due to Arsenal's overall build-up play, and he often dropped off into that midfield zone, and that's where Everton were able to disrupt Arsenal by being 3v3. Smith Rowe was often dropping into the gap between Andre Gomes and Sigurdsson, and he was closed down by Andre Gomes. And then Ceballos was closed down by Alan, and Thomas Partey was closed down by James. So as you can see, Arsenal's midfield lacked time and space in central zones. When Xhaka looked to receive the ball, Dean was tight on him, and the only real advantage that Arsenal did encounter was Pepe against Coleman. Therefore, when you look to Everton, you have to ask yourself why they didn't encounter the same issues as Arsenal. Arsenal dropped off into two banks of four, and Nketiah and Smith Rowe were sitting in between the deepest midfielder, which was often Alan. But when they looked to close down Everton, what you ended up seeing was that there was an overload. When you look at how Everton looked to approach the game in possession, you have Alan and Andre Gomes in deeper positions, but it was James Rodriguez who was dropping off deeper away from Thomas Partey to get on the ball. While he does have good passing range, you probably prefer him to receive the ball in his own half, then in between the lines or to the left or right of Thomas Partey. But the other issue that they encountered was that Sigurdsson was drifting centrally into pockets of space, and the issue here was that no Arsenal player was picking him up. That creates space for Dean to push forward and drag back Xhaka or get into an advanced position to run at Chambers. But as you can see, they struggled to pick up James Rodriguez, and with Alan deeper, Ceballos wasn't stepping out towards him, and they were able to create another passing lane for Sigurdsson, who was able to make it a 4v3 in that zone. If we focus on an example of Everton's overload, you have Smith Rowe stepping to Godfrey, but look at Alan and Sigurdsson unmarked in that midfield zone. Godfrey ends up bypassing Smith Rowe for Alan to receive the ball, but as he turns, look at Arsenal's midfield. You have Sigurdsson still free in the halfway circle, with neither Nketiah or Xhaka looking to step to him. Sigurdsson receives the ball freely, and now he witnesses Richarlison running off Ceballos and Thomas Partey, and he simply splits the two Arsenal midfielders for Richarlison to break free at the Arsenal backline, and that ultimately results in Thomas Partey and Ceballos to track back as Calvert-Lewin makes a run across holding, and that ultimately results in Thomas Partey fouling the Brazilian, and he ends up with a booking. And on top of that, besides looking to try and get the fullbacks beyond Pepe and Xhaka, Xhaka. The other clear threat here was Richarlison, and they wanted him to run at Xhaka, who isn't a natural left back. And ultimately, when you break down some of Everton's best chances in this game, it stems from that midfield overload or Richarlison looking to exploit Xhaka. Here we could see Alan on the ball in the halfway circle unmarked, with James ahead of Ceballos and Sigurdsson dropping into the Thomas Partey-Saka gap. Alan plays the ball into Calvert-Lewin backing into Chambers, and look who he has free ahead of him to lay the ball off to. He drops it off into the path of Sigurdsson, who is free in space beyond Thomas Partey, and Sigurdsson instantly pops it up ahead of Chambers and Saka for Lucas Digne. Digne has 3 runners who are breaking into the box and he's not closed down, and the only issue here is that the left back delivers his cross into the path of Leno. Minutes later, we witness Alan freeing the midfield zone beyond Nketiah and Smith Rowe, with Pepe looking to close down Coleman and Ceballos dropping off deeper to help out Xhaka with Richarlison. Alan looks to play the ball to Coleman, but he drags it forward to pull away Pepe, and that's where you see Richarlison dropping off deeper just ahead of the 2 Arsenal midfielders. As Alan carries the ball forward, Ceballos steps out to apply pressure, but that creates a gap for Richarlison to run beyond Xhaka, as now he's worried about Coleman breaking beyond Pepe. Alan ends up playing the ball beyond Ceballos and Xhaka for Richarlison to place him in this position to drag out Marty, and the Brazilian does well to cut across Marty, and unfortunately for Ancelotti, while it does place him in this legitimate goal-scoring position, he's denied by Leno. Here we witness Alan on the ball with Ceballos stepping late and Smith Rowe just ahead of Andre Gomes. What we see next is Alan ends up shifting the ball across Ceballos into the path of Coleman running beyond Saka, and that pulls out Pepe with James towards the right touchline just ahead of Xhaka. When Coleman receives the ball, he ends up dropping it off into the path of James, and that's where you see James in a 2v2 battle with Pepe and Xhaka, with Coleman making an overlapping run and Richarlison shifting laterally to drag away Marty. Coleman continues his overlapping run, and James slides the ball across Pepe for Richarlison, who locates Xhaka in a poor position, and he instantly slides the ball across the center back to place Coleman in right half space. When Coleman receives the ball in that zone, he witnesses the run of Sigurdsson across holding, and he instantly fizzes the ball to the edge of the 6-yard box, and Sigurdsson's effort is blocked by a last-ditch holding effort. And if we focus on the winner, it's Alan receiving the ball ahead of Ceballos, and you have Odegaard looking to block off the passing lane into Delph. As Alan looks to push forward, what you end up witnessing is Delph shifts laterally across Odegaard in behind Ceballos, and what you need here is for Odegaard to shift into the path of Delph, Ceballos to step forward to Alan, and Smith Rowe to tuck into the space that you see Sigurdsson dropping into. That doesn't happen, and Alan receives more time on the ball, and that's where you end up seeing Odegaard stepping towards Sigurdsson, Ceballos now yards away from Delph, and that gives Alan the time and space to play a long ball into Richarlison running off Xhaka. As you can see here, Xhaka gets his positioning wrong, and he allows Richarlison to spin off of him, and that places Richarlison in a quality position in the right channel. What happens next is that Xhaka does well to recover his positioning, but now he's in a 1v1 with Richarlison, and once again he makes another mistake by diving into the challenge, and it allows Richarlison to break free into right half space. But what happens next is that although holding does let Calvert-Lewin get goal side in the 6-yard box, his pressure is tight, and you have Mari looking to block the cutback, while Saka and Thomas Partey are blocking off the pullback for James. But unfortunately for Arsenal, Leno fails to deal with Richarlison's tame effort on goal. Ultimately, the best way for Arteta to deal with this midfield overload and the threat of Richarlison is to have Ceballos tucking in to help Xhaka deal with the threat of Richarlison down the left-hand side, and then go 3v3 in the midfield zone with Smith Rowe and Nketiah dropping off deeper to make their 4-4-2 a bit more compact, to ensure that Alan and Andre Gomes can get on the ball and allow Holgate and Godfrey to step forward. Yes, you concede the long ball threat into Calvert-Lewin, but that's where you need Holding and Marty to interchange to deal with the threat of the center forward. If James were to drop deeper, then you could have Saka tucking in to close him down, and then ultimately what you would end up seeing there is that if Dean does get onto the ball, have Chambers stepping into his path, and then have Thomas Partey shift across to the right side of the pitch to cover for his teammates. So while Arsenal's overall attack was poor on the night, it was their inability to deal with that midfield overload and Richarlison exploiting Xhaka's positioning that led to Ancelotti's success, and poor play and lack of effort from the players combined with Arteta's inability to adjust led to Arsenal's downfall. Hi everybody, thanks for watching and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the InnerViews show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the InnerViews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.